Welcome to Municipal Affairs. This past weekend, over 2,000 municipal leaders from across the country gathered in the national's capital for the annual Federation of Canadian Municipalities trade show and convention. Held in Ottawa, the convention provided a vital forum for local government leaders to come together to tackle pressing issues affecting communities from coast to coast to coast. From calls for bail reform and urgent appeals for stable, predictable federal funding to discussions on mental health and addiction and the challenges of misinformation in the digital age, the agenda was both wide ranging and deeply consequential. A major highlight of this year's event was the announcement of the FCM's new table officers for the upcoming year. Vancouver City Councillor Bligh was acclaimed as president. Ottawa City Councillor Tierney will continue on as first vice president, with Thompson, Manitoba Councillor Kathy Valentino returning as second vice president. Dorval Mayor Marc Doret joins the table for the first time, taking on the role of third vice president. And rounding out the leadership team is Amy Coady, councillor from Grand Falls-Windsor, Newfoundland and Labrador, who moves into the new role of vice president at large. Now, for the first time in recent memory, there will be no past president at the table officer this year, a significant shift as the organization moves forward. Throughout the week, we sat down with each of the acclaimed officers to hear their insights, reflections, and goals for the upcoming year. We begin this episode with our interview with President Bligh, who shares her thoughts on the outcomes of this year's convention, the challenges ahead, and the role FCM plays in championing municipal priorities at the federal level. President Bligh, thank you so much for sitting down with me on the very last day of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities in beautiful downtown Ottawa, Ontario. First off, you've been here for the last 4 days. You've been crisscrossing for the last 10 months. How has this culminated into this weekend? How are you feeling?
Oh, it has been a wonderful weekend. As always, as you say, we visit people in their home communities, and then to have everybody together in one place here in beautiful Ottawa has just been wonderful to see. We've had a very lively few days with workshops and plenaries, study tours, all on the topics of municipal government. Of course, we started the first day with meeting with all the new ministers, or not all, but the particularly impactful ministers to municipal issues and priorities. And then, of course, the Prime Minister taking time to address our entire membership who was here. So that was wonderful.
I want to pick up on that just for a second, if you don't mind. You had the pleasure to sit down face to face with him on that stage, and all the delegates were hoping to hear something, and I think they did hear something about that renewed federal municipal relation, about having you guys as a strong partner. Are you optimistic about the future with what Prime Minister Carney has said on the stage?
Yes, I think that the Prime Minister brought a real sense of real talk and pragmatism. And so that's what we need, because that's what municipal leaders do. We don't speak high level and in the ether. We talk about on the ground and in the ground issues that are required to be city building and in community building. And I think that the Prime Minister really got that, especially being here at our annual conference at a time when decisions and programs are being developed, budgets are being put together, to really see that municipalities came out in force through the vehicle of FCM to advocate for themselves and their own home communities. And so there was just, I think, a moment of synergy in that moment where both they got to hear from the Prime Minister, but the Prime Minister got to really get a sense of what FCM's all about and how strong we are together.
A few of the key takeaways that I've noticed over the last 3 days of doing interviews with delegates is housing, infrastructure, bail reform, mental health, and addiction. Those are the key themes I'm hearing over and over again. As president, you've crisscrossed Canada. Are those the key topics that you're hearing that impact every single municipality, whether they are a major metropolitan like Vancouver or Toronto, or to the smallest community of Kyle, Saskatchewan?
Absolutely. Housing, affordable housing, which also helps tackle some of those other issues related to mental health addiction. Folks need stability. They need housing stability if they're going through treatment programs. Folks who are going through rehabilitation programs through a public safety lens also need stability in housing. So the fact that the federal government is finally back in the housing game in terms of below market units of housing, which we would call that in a Vancouver context where it's extremely unaffordable, on all measures related to housing affordability and availability. The fact that the federal government's back in the housing game to build affordable housing, I think, is music to our ears here at FCM. I've been with the organization for 8 years. I've been elected for 8 years. We have not seen enough housing being prioritized at the level that folks can afford. We're talking about the workers, we're talking about frontline responders, the teachers, the nurses, those that really hold up our communities. And so, I think that the housing piece and then the infrastructure that's needed to allow that housing to be built so that a toilet flushes, so that things work, and also infrastructure that is specific to rural. We announced our rural component yesterday. We're advocating for a specific rural infrastructure fund. And why that's important, and we really did get this through to the Prime Minister, I believe, is that we can have nation-building projects, but if once those trucks leave the ports with all those goods and products, if they can't get through our roads and our bridges without hitting a bottleneck, then we've missed a massive step in being able to build that national prosperity and economic development that's going to benefit all Canadians. So I think we've really hit the mark on some of those pieces where infrastructure links to economy, housing links to mental health and addictions, and that public safety, both on the RCMP staffing side, the funding side, also is going to impact that issue of repeat offenders and bail reform as well by addressing sort of the chronic offenders while being able to actually support folks getting back into stability. So as you can hear, everything is connected that we do at the municipal level. Everything has a thread into something else, and that's what municipal leaders bring to the table when speaking to different orders of government, provincial and federal.
You talk about the rural report that was released with yourself and Neil Como, the chair of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Rural Forum, if I'm doing that right. There seems to be a big push for rural topics at this year's convention. Why was that important? Because traditionally you wouldn't think Ottawa is the place to talk about rural communities, but it seems that at the Federation wanted to talk about rural communities this time. Why was that important for yourself and for the organization?
I think there's always been a lens on rural, but perhaps not done in a way that really lifted up the voices of our rural members. We've always known it's important internally, but it's about what we project out as well. And a real focus at this time when economic development across the country is critical, and that can't just happen in our urban centers. We need to recognize that agricultural land, energy, moving goods and services, warehousing has to happen where we have a lot of land mass, and that happens in rural. Absolutely contributes to the national prosperity picture that we recognize our country is at a pivotal time to meet that moment and build, as the Prime Minister says, build, baby, build, and we're all for that, but we can't do that if we don't invest in rural, because that is really where where the rubber hits the road in terms of resource communities, and they have smaller populations there in rural Canada, so we can't simply just rely on property tax to put that infrastructure in place that's needed to make sure that the services are where they need to be for communities, and that housing is there for workers as we grow our country in a sustainable way, which means all size communities right across coast to coast to coast.
I want to talk about the future a little bit, if you don't mind, before I let you go. And you are losing Scott Pierce, but gaining Marc Doret.
Doret.
Sorry, I apologize. I just had him on.
He was so Marc Doret is the mayor of Dorval. So there we go.
I knew I'd get that right. Are you excited about the future with this new board? I know it's some similar faces, but you're adding Marc the mayor onto the board, or the table officers, I should say. Are you excited about what the future of FCM looks like under the new leadership of you as full president now? I'm not sure if you were interim or sort of president, but are you excited about the future? What happens next year?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Scott Pierce has been a force at FCM. We wish him very well. He's retiring from municipal politics after I don't know how many decades. We'll miss him, but I know he's happy. He's going to put up that gone fishing sign and really mean it this time. So we wish him well and thank him for his many years of service to FCM. And looking at the current table officer and also the expanded executive from that, I'm very optimistic. I'm very excited. We have a hardworking team. We work together in a very unified way. We're all different, so we bring different lived experience and qualities to the table as table officers. But I also know that I can call on any of my table officers now to show up in members' communities, to do what they can. We've got each other's backs. Some of them are dealing with real emergencies in their home communities this weekend in Manitoba. Kathy Valentino, our second VP officially now. So yes, and we welcome Mayor Marc Doret as third VP, and I know he'll represent Quebec very well, the Quebec caucus, and I look forward to getting to know him better and working through this year's very ambitious advocacy agenda as we continue to build on the relationships that we started here this week with the new Prime Minister and Cabinet.
What's the advice that you give to delegates as they begin to head home? Because there's the tendency when you go to a convention that, okay, you get home and everything that you learned is just going to sit on the shelf. How do you ensure that the advocacy work that happened here, the networking that happened here as president goes on to ensure that you're not starting fresh in Edmonton in 2026?
Think of those first, 3 folks that come to mind that you met at conference. Text them, stay in touch with them, get on their social media, find ways to stay connected. Even if it's just a couple of the hundreds of people you've met, those relationships go far. They in my experience, are folks I continue to call on as a municipal leader. Learning from one another, that networking, as you say, is a critically important part. And this really is an opportunity for professional and personal development as local leaders. We're often tasked with so many different jobs. We are the jack of all trades when it comes to growing communities, and so having that sort of anchor to bounce ideas off of or just tell someone about your day is critically important, as well as continue to lean in to the FCM work, off cycle, if you will, between conferences. We have tremendous amount of tools to help smaller, larger communities make sure that they have the information they need, the data that they need to represent their communities well, and also to continue to push with their local MPs on what are some of those issues that we're carrying forward into the coming year. So I think at the end of the day, I know we're all busy, but FCM's here to support you, and any opportunity to lean in, put your hand up, let us know what you're up to and how we can connect with you and your community. That's what this next year is all about. Final
question, it's kind of a political one, but as president, you should be prepared for it. What is the benefit of a membership with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities that municipalities wouldn't get by just doing the advocacy work by themselves?
It's the theme of our conference this year. We're stronger together. And the reality is that we live in a massive country with very, very different challenges from coast to coast to coast. FCM is an incredible way for all of those different priorities and perspectives to be funneled into a united voice. And in that united voice, we have a much greater chance of connecting with the federal government on our advocacy priorities, the Housing Accelerator Fund, the Canada Community Building Fund, the Green Municipal Fund, and all the other funds and the things that we do, the Infrastructure Bank. We can advocate to CMHC. We're connecting with ministers. And what we know, and we saw that with the U.S. trade crisis this year, is that things are going to happen that we have not forecasted and planned for. So the benefit of being linked into FCM is the ability for FCM to be able to respond real time to an unanticipated urgency or crisis, and already have that membership and that relationship with FCM so that you have that voice at that table when we are advocating and showing up and have that seat at the table as a very, very significant level of government in the big picture of all orders of government to be building this country for Canadians. So we're here for our members, and so we hope that members see that the value is there for them too.
President Bligh, always a pleasure to sit down and chat with you. I feel like this is the first of many conversations over the next year. Again,
yes.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you for being here, Chris.
With Ottawa serving as the backdrop and host city of this year's convention, we also spoke with First Vice President and local Ottawa City Councillor Tierney about welcoming the convention to his community and how he's preparing for the presidency when the event heads to Edmonton in 2026.
First Vice President Tierney, thank you so much for sitting down with me at the last day of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. As a homeboy, everyone's in Ottawa. How's it feel to have over about 2,500, I think?
Yeah, that's
delegates,
right.
Trade people descend upon Ottawa.
Well, first of all, thank you for filling our coffers. We do appreciate that. And I'm hearing great, you always wait till it's over. We still have a final day here, but I'm hearing really good things. Great conversations from everything from interprovincial to tariffs to funding for infrastructure, policing and bail reform. It's been a very successful, from my mind, convention, but we'll get through the final day and see what happens.
Are the issues that you just mentioned the same issues that you're dealing with here in Ottawa?
Without a doubt. I think I've heard and I've spoken to many of those 2,500 people. I barely have a voice left, but certainly that is the theme. It's across the country from coast to coast to coast, and we need our federal partners. They're the ones that, again, I love to remind everybody, no one can tell me how much federal or provincial tax they pay. They can tell me to the penny what their municipal tax bill is, so we need the assistance of the other levels of government.
You were there when Prime Minister Carney spoke. You were also chatting with Melissa Landsman. It's a new era in Canadian government.
It is.
One of the big things that FCM has been pushing for the last few weeks or last few months, and even years, is that new federal-municipal relation. And it seems like that is on the table.
Certainly.
Are you optimistic about the future of municipal-federal relations?
I certainly am. I think Prime Minister Carney is still quite new to the job. So again, I like the way that he's operating. It's about promises made, promises delivered, something I've always thought is a strength in leadership. So he'll want to make sure he has all the facts before proceeding. But there is encouraging news on that front, I believe. When it comes to our Conservative Deputy Leader, Melissa Landsman, terrific hot seat conversation with her. And with that chat, I think there's much opportunity, something I haven't seen in years. So we'll continue the conversations with the two major parties. Obviously, all parties are at the table because every vote counts. But I think they know our message loud and clear over the last few days.
So what do you do now? As First Vice President, or incoming First Vice President, fully for another year, what are you expecting to do to ensure that the conversations that happened here, the networking that happened here, the programs that happened here, don't just end the moment people get on that train, get in their cars, or get in their planes?
Yeah, great question. There will be immediate follow-up from myself and the table officers with my official role, officially becoming First Vice President today. It will start right away. We'll have our meetings within a couple of weeks with our table officers, make sure we have a follow-up strategy, make sure we keep them informed, especially as we lead up to a possible fall budget. We want to make sure all parties are pressing on what they're hearing so they can bring that information to the House and make sure that we see something related to municipalities in those three categories on the books so we know that we could provide for our citizens.
I'm hearing a lot of conversations inside rooms and even in the hallways that this is the first convention for a lot of delegates this year.
Yeah.
It's in the national capital right after an election, but they want to see what FCM is all about. From a city perspective, a city council perspective, what does FCM do for the city of Ottawa that it couldn't do for itself?
It puts itself on the national stage. We have many of our staff that have done an amazing job doing presentations. We've got to showcase some of our own local politicians, Catherine Kitts on the rural front, Sean Devine coming out and speaking about permeable laneways and walkways. We have our elected specialists, but we also have our staff, our amazing staff, giving real case examples and showcasing our city with our tours. They've been very popular, almost all sold out, so maybe a little too popular. But at the same time, I'm very proud of our city and what we've done over the last few days, and hopefully that will carry forward to the next convention in Edmonton.
Well, I just want to speak about Edmonton because it's the Alberta-based show.
Yes.
You will be ascending to the presidency in 1 year's time.
Correct.
What are you going to do this year to set yourself up to make sure you build on the success that Rebecca Bligh is this current president and Scott Pierce, past president, Tierney before him, doesn't go away because all the weight's going to be on your shoulders in 1 year?
It's certainly, yeah, no pressure, Chris. Thank you. Look, I think over the last year, I've made a very big commitment, especially to our rurals. And I've crossed paths with you so many times out in the prairies, out west. I've even been out east. It's that commitment to rural. And you've seen it here during this. You've gone to many of these conventions. Have you ever seen so much rural? We're talking rural plenaries. We're talking rural budgets. We're talking rural press releases here in the National Capital. Remember, we're 2,700 square kilometers. We got a lot of four-legged friends here too. So certainly that will be my commitment, because rurals are a big key to what's happening in the States, whether it's potash, whether it's farm equipment, whether it's produce. We're going to have to be very self-reliant. We're going to have to look at ourselves as a nation, break down those interprovincial trade barriers, and depend on ourselves probably for the next few years. So rural, making sure that we're all speaking as one country, one voice. National prosperity is our theme.
Last question before I let you go, because we're in the middle of day 4 and the events are about to kick off here. Are you optimistic about the future of municipalities as you network with people here and as the future unfolds? Because there's a lot of challenges I'm hearing on the table right now. And from what I hear from all past presidents I've chatted with on the show, these issues haven't gone away, but they're only getting worse.
Yeah, I agree. Look, in many, many years of participation with FCM, we've seen multiple things on the table where we want to move in certain directions and be progressive as cities, whether it's electrified buses, rail systems. We pushed for a lot of that in the past. Those were, I don't want to say nice to have, so they're very critical. But you've seen a pivot. These things that are on the table now are required to ensure that we actually succeed as municipalities. When I'm talking crime and bail reform, when I'm talking infrastructure and sewage and pipes that are failing, when I'm talking about, obviously, we're looking at the housing crisis. We need this now, or we're going to fail our citizens. So we'll be making that very big push. I feel very optimistic, though. I think everyone recognizes it's going to be a very tough 3.5 years remaining of an American president, but we'll continue those relationships and build on that. And next year, I think we'll hopefully be even in a better position.
Well, Councillor, First Vice President, I want to thank you so much for sitting down with me. We'll probably see each other on the road in the next few weeks, next few months, probably over the next year. So thank you so much for chatting.
Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate it.
Next, we caught up with Second Vice President Kathy Valentino, whose rapid rise within FCM began just last year in Calgary. We spoke about the impact of recent wildfires in northern Manitoba and how her experiences have shaped her perspective on national municipal advocacy.
President Valentino, thank you so much for sitting down with me and chatting at the last day of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. As the president of AMM, why is it important for AMM and Manitoba municipalities to be at a convention like this?
A couple of reasons. You know, every chance you get to network with the rest of Canadian municipalities around you, you gather more information on what municipalities are doing, and you create relationships that you end up leaning on. So the more that we can gather and build relationships, the stronger than Manitoba municipalities can be, and learn new ideas and then move those ideas forward.
I gotta broach the subject, if you don't mind, for a second, because everyone's thoughts and prayers are with the people of Manitoba this week as we celebrate municipalities, but we're also worried about municipalities, especially Flin Flon, Lynn Lake. As president of AMM, as a northern municipal leader, you're getting the reports that everyone else is getting. Take me through what you're feeling right now, if you don't mind.
Exhaustion is what we're feeling, and I think I said earlier today, you know, you come to these conferences to have a really good time and stay out late and have fun, and we've been, you know, more so staying up late, having calls and messages and texts and phone calls and stuff, and really not sleeping very good. So exhaustion would be right up there, but I can tell you, unfortunately, you learn a lot when you go through crisis situations, and, you know, I thank you for your comment. Yeah, absolutely. Northern Manitoba is on fire, and we have some great concerns with the town of Lynn Lake and the city of Flin Flon and many of our Indigenous communities that surround us. So a couple of takeaways I can say from that is I've learned, even speaking with Gerald, who's the mayor of Lloydminster, who talk about creating relationships Canadian-wise, border cities and border towns, our premiers need to know that there needs to be a conversation if we're going to have interprovincial barriers a discussion. Interprovincial barriers when it comes to emergencies or putting your province into a state of emergency, border towns and communities need to be a part of that, because I live in Manitoba on my front step, you might be living in Saskatchewan on your front step. I'm evacuated, you're not. Causes a lot of confusion, I think, and makes it hard for municipal leaders in times of crisis. So I really hope that that can be something that we can get some conversations going. That's definitely something that needs to be discussed.
A lot of outpouring of support for the people of Flin Flon and Lynn Lake and other northern communities, First Nations. When you're here and you're speaking to delegates from across Alberta and Saskatchewan, which are going through relatively the same thing, there must be a sense of, I don't want to say brotherhood because it's the worst brotherhood to be part of, but there must be a sense that we're all in this together. No matter what happens in Lynn Lake or Flin Flon, the people of Alberta will support them. The people of Nova Scotia will support them. So it must give a little bit of a reassurance, even though we're seeing pictures on TV right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the theme of this conference at FCM couldn't be better, stronger together, better together. That's true because, like Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, we're all in this fight right now. And it doesn't really matter right now what province you live in. We need each other to talk and share and just to realize that this is really happening. And it's really happening earlier and earlier every year. And it's scary. And it's good to have connections and contacts through this, that's for sure.
I can imagine what you're going to be going home to, but I've got to ask a simple question about the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Convention. What do you take back from this convention to make sure that the advocacy work that you did here, the work that was started here, doesn't end the moment you get on the plane to get back to Winnipeg to fly up to Thompson?
Well, first off, I'm going to drive back to Thompson.
Okay.
Because I want to buy my bedding plants and garden stuff, so I brought my truck and I'm going to make that long ride home. So
for you, it's nothing though. It's not a long ride.
I can do it. So, a couple of takeaways. I think that, and I'm hoping that there's been more of a message about how important rural municipalities are in Canada's whole big picture. And for Manitoba, we're a little bit unique that we're the center of Canada, and we have really, one big city, Winnipeg, and of course the city of Brandon. But rural voices in rural Manitoba really matter, and that's important to us in Manitoba, and that's important when we advocate for Manitoba municipalities, that whatever federally government plans or projects or grant applications that they put out there, that there has to be a rural lens to them, and that's a real part of our advocacy for Manitoba municipalities.
I want to turn to your role as second vice president now, because you're officially entering your supposed to be second vice president year, but due to the things that happened, they happened, and you've been second vice president for some time. You're losing Scott Pierce, but you're gaining a new member from Dorval, the mayor. Are you looking forward to the table officers and this new era of FCM as you enter into the great unknown with the Mark Carney government?
I feel like we've already been in the big unknown since this all happened these last 12 months, but excuse me. Well, I think one of the things is I got to make my New Year's resolution to learn French, because that's going to matter now on the table officers, I think. But all joking aside, because of a bit of the chaos we've been living in with U.S. and even a Canadian federal election, we've all really got to know each other quickly and really stepped up. So ironically, we've built a really kind of close network because we had to, and that's a good thing. So I just think we're just continuing moving on as we have been, and it was a fast pace, and so I think that we'll just continue that, and that's good, that momentum. Unfortunately, it's on the backs of U.S. tariffs, and we had to do all that, but yeah, it's going to be good.
You were relatively an unknown to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities as of Calgary last year, and you were a self-described unknown. Looking back on the last year, many municipal leaders might be going back to their community and saying, is it worth it? Is it worth to be part of the organization of Federation of Canadian Municipalities? As someone who's now not only active, but a table officer, do you feel like you get your worth from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, whether it be that advocacy, whether it be that those meetings on the Hill? What do you get from being part of FCM that you're like, this is why we do it?
You're absolutely right. I was a complete unknown. I was not aware of FCM as in depth, I guess, as I do now. So do I think, yeah, I certainly do. After I see the work that FCM has done with the US tariffs and right away going to work for Canadian municipalities, absolutely. And I see now the opportunity that we have with a new Canadian government. Whatever the government of the day was, we were ready and did a lot of, pre-election work and meetings, and I think that it's a huge opportunity, and I think that you could see that over this conference the last few days. I was the moderator for the rural infrastructure agenda. Like, what do we want that to look like? What do we want to be able to offer to the federal government that we want to see in the next infrastructure funding program? So you can't do that if you're not at the table, and if you're not a part of FCM, you're not going to have a say. So we have to try and we have to speak up. That's our role, and it's a privilege to serve. And we have to do our best and try because we're being given this opportunity to serve. So yeah, I think it's definitely worth it.
President Valentino, it's always a pleasure. Our hearts are with you at this time right now, but I look forward to seeing you in Winnipeg.
Now, the newest member of the executive team, Dorval Mayor Marc Doret, joined us to reflect on his decision to step into the national spotlight as third vice president and his vision for FCM's work in Quebec and across Canada.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me and chatting. I want to get a sense, first off, what brings you, outside of you being acclaimed as third vice president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, what brings you back to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities year after year?
So what I really enjoy about this event is that there's so much diversity in terms of learning. The sessions are very interesting, and there's a diversified voice here, which I'm not saying it doesn't exist in the Quebec federations, associations, but it's broader. You get to hear the same issues, but with different points of view from across the country, and I think that's really what's really the most enriching about the FCM and this event.
So traditionally, before all the conventions, I sit down with all the third VPs if they're running opposed. But you were acclaimed in the position. What made you decide to put your name forward for a table officer position for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities this year? Why you? Why the City of Dorval needs that voice on the Federation of Canadian Municipalities table?
So the City of Dorval has been for a very long time, probably 25 years or so, always been part of the FCM. My past mayor was very involved. I'm involved, and our full council comes, and this is very important because it's not just mayors who should come here or one or two councillors. We've always felt that visiting other cities, understanding what's going on in the rest of the country is really important. So all our councillors attend at least one of the associations, be it a federal one or a provincial one. So when the position became available this year, it was almost like a natural to do it. I've always been interested in it. Scott Pierce, who's going into retirement, I know him well. He lives close to where I am, and so we've had a lot of discussions. So it was just a natural. And if there was competition, so be it. I was just fortunate, but who knows? Next year could be a whole different ballgame.
Can I ask for that in French if possible?
Donc, pourquoi nous, à la Cité de Dorval, ça fait des années, peut-être 25 ans qu'on vient ici à la FCM. L'importance de cet événement pour nous, c'est primordial parce que on a l'opportunité de visiter différentes parties du pays, des grosses communautés, des petites communautés. Et c'est comme ça qu'on apprend, on adapte, on voit et on ramène ça dans nos communautés. Et ça, c'est intéressant parce que voir des différentes opinions à travers le pays nous donne une sorte de richesse, ça nous donne l'habilité de voir qu'est-ce qu'on fait différent un point de vue différent qui peut être appliqué chez nous. Et pour moi, là, c'est ça que j'aime beaucoup avec la FCM. Et c'est pourquoi que la Ville est impliquée. Et c'est la raison pourquoi tout le Conseil vient aussi. C'est vraiment un bel événement.
One of the things that happens at these conventions is the networking, and a lot of people enjoy that part of it, connecting with similar-sized municipalities, larger municipalities, smaller municipalities, and hearing the common concerns so they don't feel so much as like an island upon themselves, especially more rural communities. The larger cities may not feel that way, but more rurals do. From your perspective, when you're talking to other municipalities across Canada, are you hearing the same issues that are happening in Dorval, that are happening in, say, British Columbia, in Newfoundland and Labrador, or is, and I hate to use a term that someone else coined on the show, but are you an island upon yourself with your own unique issues?
We're not an island on our own at all. Do we have the same issues as everybody? I don't think so, because we are within a very large agglomeration. Montreal is a very big city, so there are issues that are more rural for certain community that we don't necessarily deal with. However, there's a lot of things that are common, big city, little city. Homelessness today, I live in a suburban community. 3-4 years ago, homelessness didn't exist. It existed in Montreal, didn't exist in the suburbs. So we had to quickly adapt, learn, listen, and now we're doing things which 5 years ago we would have never done at all. This year in the city of Dorval, we had a warming center for the homeless. 5 years ago, we had no homeless. So, you have to adapt, but to be able to do so, it comes with information that comes from other people. So I've had discussions with Tim Tierney here in Ottawa. They have a facility for the Inuit community that we have in Dorval as well. And so it's good to talk about the common issues and how one city is dealing with it versus another city. So I think there's a lot to be gained from talking to people, no matter if they're from big cities, small cities, they're farmers or not farmers. It really doesn't matter. You gain the experiences are the same for everybody.
What do you take back from a convention like this? Because most people might come to this convention and say, okay, I'm going to come, I'm going to network, but once I get back on the plane, I have to focus on what's going back on at my home. What's your advice to delegates? Because a lot of them are first-time delegates here this year who are going back to their communities today and tomorrow saying, what should I do with this information that I've gathered? What advice would you give them?
Well, I'd say, look, meet as many people as you can, number one. That's how you're going to get some great ideas from what's going on in the rest of the country. Number two, attend the sessions. There's a lot of great information that otherwise you wouldn't find. And this year was particularly strong. I thought what was done by the SEM was fantastic. We're seeing a lot more French in those discussions, which is also very important. So I would encourage the folks from Quebec to really consider coming to the SCM and not just staying at the UMQF, QM. Come every now and then to the FCM and see what they have to offer. But what I get is that I bring back to my community is when I go on the tours and I see what other cities are doing, and there's some great things going on, and that for me is what I take back to my community. A lot of the discussions that we have, to a certain point they repeat themselves, they are updated. What I find really enriching is the tours to see what they're doing in small communities, in a local neighborhood. Is it a community garden, or is it a new rec center, or is it a public park? Those are the things that I really like to see, and that kind of inspire me in going back to my community and say, hey, let's see if we can do something similar to that. So, une des choses quand je viens ici, que j'aime faire, c'est les visites guider dans les communautés. Pour moi, c'est la partie la plus importante. On peut venir, on peut faire des sessions très intéressantes. La FCM est très fort pour ça. En plus, on rencontre beaucoup de personnes. On échange de l'information, très important. Mais pour moi, c'est les visites qu'on fait dans les communautés. Ça peut être sur les traitements d'eau, ça peut être sur les renouvellements des berges, ça peut être des parcs publics, peu importe. C'est vraiment inspirant à voir qu'est-ce que les communautés font à travers le pays. Et des fois, c'est des petites villes ou des villages ou un banlieue. Et là, c'est comme ça qu'on s'inspire et on revient dans nos communautés et on voit si on peut faire un peu la même chose. Pas exactement pareil, mais un peu la même chose.
My last question, because I know you have to get back to the convention because there's things going on, but what does Dorval get from FCM that it couldn't do on its own? What is the thing that brings you back every year and the thing that you say, okay, this is the ROI for Dorval, for us to be part of the return on investment, for our membership to be part of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities?
Pour nous, à Dorval, qu'est-ce qu'on ramène à la ville, c'est le fonds municipal vert. Pour nous, c'est très important. On a des projets qui s'en viennent à Dorval. La ville est en expansion. Et je crois qu'on va utiliser le fonds pour nous aider à développer ces projets. Ça, c'est quelque chose qu'on n'a pas au Québec. Faut que tu viennes à la FCM pour avoir accès. On a eu des très bonnes discussions cette année avec le programme pour des arbres. Et nous, à la Cité de Dorval, on plante 300 000 d'arbres chaque année. Donc, le projet fédéral qui existe seulement à la FCM, c'est très important. Ça, c'est le type de programme que nous, on a besoin d'être ici. On doit être présent pour avoir accès à cette information. Si tu n'es pas là, voilà, c'est difficile. Tu ne sais pas qu'est-ce qui existe. Donc, important pour que les Québécoises viennent ici. Oui, au Québec, on reçoit notre argent du provincial, mais il y a des situations où on peut avoir des fonds directement de la FCM sans passer par Québec, et ça, c'est très important pour les Québécois.
Merci.
Very good.
Mayor, I want to thank you so much for sitting down with
It's a
me
pleasure.
and chatting. This has been great. I feel like this is the first of many conversations you and I will be having over the next few years as you ascend to the presidency.
Well, we'll see where that goes. Hey, we're going to have fun along the way.
And finally, we spoke with Amy Coady, who takes on a new position as Vice President at Large. Representing Newfoundland and Labrador, she offered her perspectives on the evolving municipal landscape in her province and her continued commitment to the FCM's mission.
President Coady, thank you so much for sitting down with me and chatting on the last day of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities.
Always a pleasure.
I guess I can call you President and now VP of the Federation, but I'm going to talk to you as President of MNL, if you don't mind for a second.
Sure.
Why is it important for municipalities across Newfoundland and Labrador to be here at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM?
Yes, well, it's again about opportunities, the ability to learn, the ability to be educated, to make new connections, to gain as much knowledge in the sector as you possibly can, and just, to make the connections with your counterparts right across the country. We do a lot of work in our own provincial and territorial associations with our own conferences, our own symposiums, but that's all our own people in our own province or territory. So to be able to come here and meet with everyone right across the country, it's huge value in that.
You are also now the Vice President at Large for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. You're joined by a new third VP. Are you excited for the year ahead from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this year has been such a whirlwind with, the American election and the tariffs, the trade war, on top of all of our regular challenges that we're facing. We had a federal election as well. There's new leadership. So, now we also have to continue to build on and form new relationships with new people that are in power and in different cabinet positions.
So it's about, again, getting that familiarity back. We're lucky that, there's a lot of returning. All the parties are always supportive of our events. And show up and talk to us and work with us. So we've got to build up those relationships and just make sure that we constantly are reminding them of our needs and that we are a fabulous partner and someone that they want to have at the table to make them make the best decisions for our municipalities and communities.
You talked in your opening question that I asked about the common similarities that people are seeing across Canada and not feeling like you're on an island, but even though Newfoundland is an island in itself. When you're here at the convention in your role as MNL president, but also just as a councillor as well, are you hearing the same issues that you're dealing with, or do you feel like there are unique issues only Newfoundland and Labrador is addressing, and you're like, oh, we don't feel like other municipalities are hearing what we're dealing with?
There is a sense that our issues are unique, and to some extent, they're unique to our ability to address them and to help solve them, but they're not unique to the country either. I mean, we're all dealing with the issues of housing and homelessness, of mental health and addictions issues, infrastructure needs, the housing crisis, everything, the needs of our municipalities, the ability that we have only property tax and business tax to gain revenue from. We're all talking about a new fiscal framework, working with the federal government and our provincial governments to fund us better, to have plans in place that we're aware of when it comes to funding models or funding for infrastructure or capital projects. We just want to know in advance, give us a plan, have some structure, instead of always, playing the guessing game, trying to design our budgets about what we think is going to come, but never really knowing for sure, what is coming. So, yeah, that's, it's unique in the resources that we have in dealing with the issues from community to community, province to province, territory. But again, why it's so important to be here at these events, to hear and get the information on what did you do, how did you do it, how were you successful in this, why weren't you successful when you tried that, and it just saves us all some steps and some time in the long run.
So we haven't chatted in a few months, but that would be a lie, probably in a few weeks since the last time you and I chatted. But the last time we chatted, you had a premier called Andrew Furey.
Yes.
And now you do not have a premier named Andrew Furey. So going a little bit local, from MNL's perspective, how has the relationship blossomed under the new premier? I know it's still early days, but have you had that first initial contact of setting up the agenda of what MNL's issues are? Yes,
Premier Hogan has come out of the gate running, I will say that. We have had initial contact with the Premier's office. We have a meeting set up with him very soon, actually. He's continuing Premier Furey's work on the trade issues, and the Premier's roundtables are continuing. So he's been great in, really keeping that going and making sure that, he's well informed as to what the needs of the businesses and the various trades in Newfoundland and Labrador, what we're facing, and then in working with the federal government as well as we work towards the interprovincial trade barriers, making sure that Newfoundland and Labrador is protected but can also advance, as we move those trade barriers interprovincially as well. We're a little bit concerned that the provincial election is going to kind of gobble up some of the municipal election. Our municipal elections are scheduled for October the 2nd. The province has until October 17th to call their provincial election. So now with a brand new leader, there's all kinds of rumors. It's going to be tomorrow, it's going to be October, it's going to be 3 weeks. Nobody really knows until that announcement is made. We would hope that it would be earlier so that we can take the time and focus on the candidates who will run in the municipal election. MNL will be running their Make Your Mark campaign again to encourage people to put their names on the ballot, people in our communities to make sure that our council tables reflect the makeups of our communities and that everybody gets represented. So, we're on a wait and see. We're kind of like, giving them a poke, can you go soon type thing. But hey, at the end of the day, it'll be their decision. Yeah.
Getting back to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities for two last questions, if you don't mind. What do you take away from here? You were heading back to Grand
Falls-Windsor, yeah.
Too many grands out. Grand Falls-Windsor.
Brittany and I are great friends, so
exactly. And that's
I have no issues being compared to Brittany.
You're heading back to Grand Falls-Windsor. What do you take back from FCM to make sure that the networks that you happen, the conversations that took place, don't just end the moment you step on that plane and fly out to St. John's?
Yes, they really don't end. You leave here with a phone full of brand new contacts, new Facebook friends, new Instagram posts to like, and you get a bunch of swag from all these new businesses that you probably weren't familiar with who can provide services to your community. So you bring all that back, you share it with your counterparts, and you stay in touch. And you look so forward to the next event when you're going to get to see not just your colleagues but now your friends again. But just the information that you gain here, being able to be present in so many different sessions on so many different topics that are so relevant to how we operate our municipalities. There's just so much value in that, and you take it all with you, and you just continue to build on it from a year-to-year basis.
And so my last question is kind of political, but I think you're ready for it. That'll be nice. What is the benefit that MNL or a community like Grand Falls-Windsor gets from being part of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities?
So much. I can't say enough. It goes back to my previous answer. The access to information, the ability to meet and connect with and learn from, to have all of these resources in one area and to be able to maneuver that area over 3 to 4 days and talk to service providers, counselors, staff members, anybody, board members, just be able to get that knowledge, pick it up at a trade show booth, even try new foods. You see, when we all do our own individual conferences and symposiums, like I mentioned, just to see, okay, look, this food layout worked very well. This is the type of crowd that they had. This is how they had it set up so that it was easy to maneuver through. Like the little things like that, you don't even understand how valuable that information is when you're planning your own events. So, you get the feedback from people, and you're sitting down, you're having your lunch, and you're talking about the great food, you're talking about the coffee is great, you're talking about what they did to improve their water and sewer system. It's just all encompassing, and those opportunities don't come easily, and they don't come often. So when you have an opportunity to be involved with an event like the FCM annual conference and AGM, then it's just so worthwhile. I would encourage anybody to at least attend one in their term of council.
Well, President Coady, I want to thank you so much for sitting down with me. I have promised, and you saw me book my hotel.
Yes.
I got my business partner, my husband, to book the flights to
Can't
Deer
wait.
Lake. So I am
Good,
coming. It is
good.
on the books. It is paid for, so there's no turning
Awesome.
back, and I did not book the flight this time.
Well, it's our 75th anniversary, so you're coming at a fabulous time.
Perfection. So I'm looking forward to seeing you out in Corner
I
Brook later
can't
on
wait.
this year.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Municipal Affairs, which was only made possible by you, our generous supporters of the Cross Border Network. Your continued support and financial backing of this show makes episodes like today's possible. If you want to join the growing list of supporters, head over to the crossborderinterviews.ca website and support the show today. To stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes, don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube, and follow us on social media. For even more content and to learn more about the stories and the people we feature on this show and our sister shows, visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Again, your support means the world to us, so share this episode with your friends, your family, and help us keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back with a brand new episode of Municipal Affairs soon. Till then.